it's time to get geeky. It's time to get into the gooey, geeky details, because if you've watched me long enough on some of these shows, you know that I am a super hardware geek. I love hardware. And we can't spend a day talking about AI and not talk about hardware. So I had to go get the hardware man himself when it comes to all of our AI solutions. I believe he's been involved with it from the beginning, but we'll verify that in just a second. Mr. Dave Arnette. Dave, thank you so much for joining, man. I've been trying to get you on the show for like a year.
I know, man.
And you're a hard man to get a hold of.
What can I say?
But I really appreciate you making the time for us today.
Yeah, no problem.
We have some things that I want to be delicate about how I say them and how we communicate them. So there are a lot of moving parts when it comes to hardware related to some of our AI solutions. Can you sort of take me down the high level of what that looks like and what those integrations are as far as when it comes to AI and what hardware pieces people need to be considering above and beyond a storage system?
Well, the whole architecture matters, right? The network is critical, the compute systems themselves, right? This is a workload that is entirely compute dependent, and even though we like to sell storage, our role in it is not about delivering storage at that. It's more about managing data.
Yeah.
Right. And so the infrastructure we're talking about, like NVIDIA DGX servers or the equivalents from some of the OEMs, they all kind of offer the same things. NVIDIA doesn't really mind where you buy your GPUs from as long as you buy GPUs. So all the OEMs offer the same things. And then NetApp, we've been working with, like you said, I've been working with NVIDIA since basically NetApp started working on these things.
Was that like ONTAP AI stuff in 2016, I believe is what it was?
2018 was the first one we released, so 6 years ago. And that was with the original DGX1 hardware and kind of our existing storage platforms at the time. Things have come a long way since then, right? The servers have come a long way. It's astonishing to me that something as powerful as a DGX1 is basically obsolete now, and they don't even support them anymore. And even though our data scientists are getting a lot of really good use out of the ones we bought back then, we can't get parts for them if they break. So it's kind of hard to work on.
It's kind of like running a modern video game on a 1080 Ti. It might run for a minute. But
that's right. Yeah. So. We've been doing a lot of work now. Obviously A100s and H100s is the kind of current generation. Doing a lot of testing. We've got a new storage platform that's come out. Basically delivers twice the performance of an A800. The testing I'm doing is with an A90, and it's basically twice the performance of an A800. And the beautiful part about it, as a hardware geek should appreciate, the A90 is a direct head swap into an A800 chassis, so you don't have to replace disk drives, you don't have to change anything about your configuration. You pull out the controllers, you put new ones in, you're going twice as fast. That's awesome.
So all of you A800 customers out there, I hope you were paying attention, and if you haven't, contact your reps, because that's maybe one of the easiest head swaps we've ever done.
It's amazing to me that it is that easy, right? And unfortunately, the only thing you don't get out of that head swap is the lighted bezel.
I thought we really nailed it with the A700, especially with the A900, where everything was kind of vertically mounted, and you could just pull the controllers out back in.
Yeah.
It got even better. So
I love the new hardware. The new hardware is so awesome.
Yeah.
Every part in it comes out of it without a tool. You can swap, network cards without tools while it's hot. You got to reboot it to get them to recognize, but it's so much easier to work with, and everything is really accessible on the back of the systems. And they're twice as fast as they used to be.
They're screaming crazy.
They're screaming fast, and they're only going to get faster, right? There's a lot of work at ONTAP coming that's going to make that go even better.
So when we've announced some Nemo solutions back at GTC earlier this year. We've had the various AI pod solutions that have come out throughout the year. There's been something else that did it get announced today? Can we talk about it?
Not really.
No, not yet. All right.
Tomorrow.
So,
there's some really good stuff coming tomorrow.
There's some stuff coming tomorrow, but I probably should have had him on tomorrow. Maybe you can sneak back over.
I'm happy to come back tomorrow.
But we have some more stuff coming, guys, as far as that's concerned. Where does so you mentioned going over the whole architecture a second ago. What's different about architecting a system for AI versus what you would consider a normal client server or virtualization system when it comes to that? How does it come into effect when you're slapping a DGX in the computer?
Well, at the end of the day, we're talking about some pretty demanding workloads, right? Extremely high read throughput requirements, extremely high write throughput requirements. excuse me. So we're talking about networking at 100 gig or faster speeds. The new generation of ONTAP hardware supports 200 gig now, and will support 400 gig in a future ONTAP release. So it just gets big. It just gets bigger and bigger. Like I said, the network needs to support the kind of connectivity and performance that we're looking for. NetApp, obviously, we're huge on NFS, and with the last couple of versions of ONTAP, we've released a number of features that basically turn ONTAP into a parallel file system.
Yeah.
And so we can deliver really, really massive scale performance now out of the same package, and at the same time do all the data management stuff that actually makes AI a lot easier to do.
Well, you brought up NFS as that. I'm thinking about on the block side, like what some of the advances we've made of NVMe over TCP. Does that have a pretty big? Is that a big difference maker when it comes to these kinds of solutions?
Well, I'll say AI is not a block workload kind of not a block,
big file
not a block
reads and
storage
stuff?
kind of workload,
Okay.
right? It's basically either it's massively shared file systems, right? So that means either a distributed or parallel file system, or it means something like an NFS server that's capable of delivering that. So we really don't see much in the terms of kind of block protocols. The local devices in the servers are NVMe, and we can use those as a cache if we really need to, but generally our systems are fast enough that we can just run without it.
Kind of plays into our wheelhouse, our strengths quite a bit.
Straight into
right?
our wheelhouse,
ONTAP tends to love those the file-based protocols the most, right? What was this? I wrote something down here earlier to talk with you about specifically, and that was the data mobility part. When we talk about building these sorts of pods or these kind of prescribed architectures to be able to do AI and things like that, when you get to mobility, does it become more difficult or less difficult in that sense? Do you have to have like versus like? Is there somewhat? Is it as long as it's ONTAP? Is that good enough?
Well, I'll say as long as it's ONTAP, it's good enough,
Okay.
right? Like the challenge here is, and this is a thing I say to basically every customer I talk to these days, AI is a data challenge. It's not a performance challenge. It's not the performance and the infrastructure are kind of required, but without data, it doesn't happen. It doesn't matter how good the infrastructure is, right? So the flow of data from wherever it's collected or created into a training environment where it can be used to do AI things, or even stashed for doing RAG purposes, right? To actually have relevant data put where it can be accessed for an on-demand type of system. That's a much bigger challenge that our customers are facing than just delivering performance for the GPUs.
Well, it's also a much bigger, different kind of workload than just like standing up 100 VMs or something like that, right? And it's a different kind of architecture, different kind of networking.
Yeah, like I said, we're talking about 100 gig or better networking for storage. We're talking about 400 or 800 gig networking between the servers for GPU to GPU type communication.
Is that all InfiniBand? Like, what's realistically what can deliver that kind of bandwidth at this point?
Well, 800 gig Ethernet is available.
By who?
Mellanox.
Mellanox. Okay, so NVIDIA's doing it. Yeah.
I'll say in the largest scale architectures, InfiniBand is preferred, especially for that east-west communication.
Yeah.
Mainly because InfiniBand is actually architected and engineered to help accelerate those kinds of processes. Things like an all reduce. The Mellanox network can actually do an all reduce in the network before it gets to the server that needs it, so it just streamlines the operations. On the other hand, Mellanox themselves or NVIDIA themselves have demonstrated that their current generation of Ethernet switches is only about 150 nanoseconds slower than an InfiniBand switch, and I don't know many people who can measure 150 nanoseconds in their application stack, right? So that becomes a wash. So, we're all in on Ethernet. I wouldn't argue with the use of InfiniBand for the east-west communication, but certainly for a storage protocol, it makes much more sense, certainly for an enterprise, to use something like NFS that's already in the data center, and maybe we need to upgrade to a 100 gig network, but that's the same technology, just faster.
Well, comparative to an AI hardware solution, it's going to be a negligible cost almost to do that.
Oh yeah,
right?
compared to the GPUs.
Yeah, compared to all your GPUs,
the networking
and your
and
CPUs,
the storage is a rounding error sometimes.
Yeah, exactly. Well, Dave, I really appreciate it, man. Thank you so much for stopping by. Anything you want to leave other than the teaser for tomorrow?
Well,
Can I get a commitment? Can you stop back by tomorrow to chat with us?
I will absolutely stop back tomorrow. And
so we can actually talk about it?
One of the things I'll tease is that I did just on Friday. It hasn't really been publicized, but I've released a new version of the reference architecture with this AI90 and some of the performance results and a lot of the configuration details, really to help make it easier. You know, there are some aspects that get a little geeky, and so that's a part of what I do, is make sure that we've, you know, help customers do it as easy as possible and still get that kind of performance.
Awesome. If you would send that to me, send me a link to it. I'll make sure we blast it out to everybody. All right.
Will do.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Dave. Appreciate it, man.